If you try to make head or tail of our West Ham transfer windows, not just this one, but throughout the last 10, 15 years, I'm sure it's going to drive you absolutely crazy to try and work out what the strategy might be, if there is one at all. I'm sure in the future, some university student is going to take West Ham as a potential target and use it for his thesis or her thesis to try and explain the logic behind it all. And I dare say maybe they'll even realize that there is no logic at all. Look, I've explained on previous shows my confusion and disappointment at all the false starts that we seem to have gotten at West Ham over the years. When we think something will change, along comes David Sullivan to remind us all who's in charge. Him and him alone. We had it under Pellegrini and his director of football, Mario Husilos, where they got booted out for not doing a good job of using the club's money. We got it with Steidham, where again, it was all his fault, apparently, for the state we're now in. And now we've got Carl Macauley, who comes with an impeccable reputation of identifying young talent at good prices from around the world, who then become stars and are sold for fortunes to allow the transfer window to be self-funding and as well as making the club a good profit in the process. You'd think that David Sullivan would be over the moon to have such an established scout at the club, where for Sullivan, where money talks, if Macauley was allowed to do his job without interference, we'd have at least two, maybe even three young players signing for the club in this summer transfer window who could then earn Sullivan and West Ham a sizable profit within the next year or two when we go to sell them for a big fee. It looks promising, or it certainly did look promising when we signed El Hadji Malik Diouf for around £19 million. But is that it? When it comes to future stars, it's beginning to look like that might only be it. Diouf might be the only young player that we get in, and a lot will be riding on him being successful, so that then we can sell him for a vast profit in the future. And look, with a few weeks before the new season kicks off, and under a month before the transfer window shuts, until the winter transfer window, all we're now being linked to are players on free transfers and players at the latter stages of their careers rather than the early stages. We're all still expecting the arrival of free agent Callum Wilson. I mean, after all, he's only 33, so what's the problem? He's younger than Antonio, I guess. So that brings the average age of the squad down somewhat. And as I mentioned about a week or so ago, he comes on a very decent contract, pay as you go. With the figures now that we learned just the other day, he could be earning about under 10 grand a week, and only as much as 60 grand a week, dependent on appearances, goals scored, and so on. We're also anticipating the signing of 29-year-old Josh Brownhill. Now, I did say the other day I wouldn't mind him, but in context of bringing other midfielders in as well. But on his own, I don't know. Apparently, he's moved to Essex. Whether that's true or not, I really don't know. Again, a player older than we anticipate that we're meant to be looking for. He won't necessarily have been on a huge wage at Burnley. So if we offer him a 2-year deal, maybe with an option of another year at a modest wage of 50 grand a week, that would be all right, wouldn't it? After all, he's only 5 years older than Mohamed Kudus, and he'll be on 30 grand less a week. So he'll be cheaper at least. And then we come to the goalie situation. We allowed Lucas Fabianski to leave. I mean, he was on around 70, 80 grand a week, and he is 40 years of age. And we all do agree that he's been a great servant, but it was time for him to move on. But when we're linked to a 29-year-old Brazilian keeper who's likely to be on a low wage and is going to be 11 years younger than Fabianski, should we be happy about that? But when we've been linked to a number of rather exciting, promising young keepers throughout the whole transfer window, the news that we've actually made a bid, 8 million euros, for the Brazilian at Club Botafogo, Brazilian Club Botafogo, for Victor's services, then the news kind of leaves you a little bit sort of confused and a bit numb. Sure, he could be a fantastic keeper, and sure, he could be better than Areola, but could he? At 29 years of age, with a very short stint on loan to Spanish club Real Valladolid back in 2023, John Victor's career has been played in Brazil. And he's never even been called up into the Brazilian national squad. The highest he's achieved internationally is the under 17s level. At least Areola has been in the French national squad. Sure, he's hardly played, but until now, he's considered good enough to be part of that squad. The whole John Victor story simply just doesn't add up in a lot of ways. But Romano has confirmed that an offer has been made, and far be it from me to suggest that Romano's wrong. So I can safely assume that a bid has been made, but it's been knocked back by Botafogo. But what does he have that any of the other keepers we've been linked to doesn't have? Well, I scurried around earlier on when I heard the news that we've made a bid for him and to try and find a scout report on him. And thankfully, The Athletic did one only at the beginning of July because Victor has been linked to potentially going to Man United. He's a potential target for them. Now, it highlighted Victor's strong points and also talked about his recent performances, his impressive recent performances at the Club World Cup for Botafogo. And he's considered to be one of the most informed keepers in South America right now. Potter wants a goalie who's going to be good at ball distribution, and Victor offers that. Just the only difference is that he's not the sweeper keeper that we keep hearing about, building up from the back. But Victor is very much about getting the ball out wide, diagonally, long passes rather than the short, intricate ones around the penalty box. So, the ball will be launched more successfully than Areola can. And we know Areola's ball distribution is not good, whether it's short or long. And his long-range passing, Victor's passing, is likened to Edison's of Man City. Not my words. Read the Athletic scout report. Now, his long-range passing to wide areas would certainly help stretch the field, certainly push the team forward. He's dominant in the air, uses his 6'5" frame to really good effect, and he's got a clear command of his 18-yard box. And he's also described as an excellent shot stopper, which I guess you really want in a keeper, don't you? Now, despite his age, he's considered to be a sought-after keeper who could do well in a European league. So there's a lot to consider. Certainly whether Potter is now aiming to ditch the build-up from the back, a sweeper keeper type role, and look at, maybe being more direct in his play. We know that's not Potter's style. We've seen it in America on this US tour where there's a lot of build-up from the back and it's been relatively successful, apart from Areola's stupid pass, which led to a goal. But on the whole, the team looked comfortable building from the back. So John Victor won't offer that. He'll offer something different. But perhaps with Areola's confidence seeming to take a nosedive at the moment, John Victor could come in for the here and now. But what about the future? Is this just another sticking plaster, rather than looking at the long term? We keep hearing that we're in advanced talks for Mads Hermansen with Leicester City. Apparently, that conversation is still going on. And the links to Victor maybe could just be a smokescreen to take eyes off the Hermansen deal happening. I don't know. Does that work? At 25 years of age, Hermansen is everything, offers everything that Graham Potter wants in a keeper, not only for the here and now, but a player at 25 for the future as well. Now, it could be that the price is a factor in us getting this over the line. And maybe if Leicester City hear that we're targeting another keeper, maybe they'll just, agree to a deal rather than get the money we offer than nothing at all. But to be honest with you, Hermansen's is a goalkeeper that's in demand. Now, from my understanding, Leicester do need to get money in. They need to improve their squad, especially up front after the departure of Jamie Vardy. And Hermansen is one of their most sellable assets. Now, last year, they wanted 35 million in the summer transfer win. Well, no, last year they wanted 35 million if he was to go. Maybe they'll settle on what, 20, 25 million now? I doubt they'll settle on 20, but 25 million with potential add-ons, that could be done. A deal could be on. And I'm sure that West Ham can negotiate a deal that's going to be acceptable to both clubs. Now, perhaps, just maybe, we're looking at two keepers. I mentioned this the other day when we were linked to a couple of young keepers, one to replace Areola and a backup like Victor, possibly being a number two. But at this stage of his career, will John Victor accept that, especially when there are meant to be other clubs showing an interest in Europe? I just don't know how this one's going to pan out. When the senior source was asked whether the Romano tweet was accurate, he just replied, "I can't comment on transfers as it does not help getting any over the line. We have a number of keepers who are interested." And this was a comment made earlier today. So hearing that we've got a number of keepers that we're still interested in seems to suggest there are a few, sort of irons in the fire. And maybe Victor is one of two that will come in. Maybe we still after Hermansen as well. However, though, if we end up with Callum Wilson, Josh Brownhill, and a cheap goalie in John Victor, then, as I mentioned the other day, the Macauley project is really dead and buried. Because let's be honest, if we do end up with Wilson, Brownhill, and Victor, all we're going to end up doing next summer is start looking for a goalie, a striker, and an attacking midfielder to start looking at replacing those three players. Whereas right now, we may not be able to solve all three areas, but at least we can solve what? Two of the three by spending money on Hermansen, or even if it is Suzuki or whoever else that we're targeting, a younger keeper, spending money on a decent young midfielder. And we've got plenty like, Fernandez of Southampton links, etc. And then perhaps accepting that Wilson will come in just to cover for this season and then looking at building on and improving that particular area next summer. We know that we're not going to fix all our issues, all our squad issues in one summer window, but at least get another couple over the line that's going to give us confidence that we're going in the right direction. Let's see what happens. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Do subscribe to the channel. Costs nothing to subscribe. All the content is free. And if you've enjoyed the show, please hit the like button and I'll see you all again very soon.